So I had the pleasure of meeting the wonderful actress and activist Joanna Lumley in the European Parliament. The occasion of her visit was to promote awareness and consciousness on behalf of the organisation Compassion in World Farming. She's not advocating that we become vegetarians, it's just that how directives on animal welfare in the European Union have been broken. Many will know her, some don't. 1970s series The New Avengers. But she's had a very lively media career, making movies and sitcoms and comedies and all kinds of things. And she will be very well known for this organisation helping the Gurkhas and their recognition as British citizens. So, as I said, she's a patron to many, many organisations, and it was a delight to meet her. I should warn you, by the way, that there's a little insert of a video that is a little disturbing and the treatment of pigs in this, so be forewarned.
In natural conditions, pigs spend much of their time rooting, foraging and exploring. None of these activities are possible in factory farms.
Bored and frustrated, the pigs turn to the only thing in their barren world, the tails of other pigs. They begin to bite these tails. To prevent this, farmers dock, or slice off, part of the tail. However, scientific research shows that the right way to prevent tail biting is to keep pigs in good conditions, above all giving them straw or something similar to engage their interest. Recognising this, the EU banned routine tail docking in 2003. Despite this, virtually every pig we saw was tail docked. The law provides that pigs must have a clean and comfortable lying area. This requirement is often ignored. Filthy conditions are all too common. Some pens are clogged with excrement. We saw pigs covered in flies and others covered in excrement. A number of pigs were suffering from serious health problems. These pigs have hernias and should have been euthanised rather than being left in such a poor condition. Some have wounds. The damage to this animal's ear was caused by other pigs biting and would have been very painful. This pig's festering wound was lying in the pen's feed trough. Under EU law, ill or injured pigs must be cared for without delay. Here too we found regular breaches of the law. Sick pigs often receive no treatment and are left to suffer. We saw ill and lame pigs in barren alleyways, apparently without food or water. In some cases, they eventually die in their pens. Piles of dead pigs are testimony to the harsh conditions on many farms. We have previously alerted the EU's main farming body to the widespread law breaking, but they have failed to take effective action. We have informed member states, most have failed to take effective action. We have told the EU's Pig Veterinary Society, and yes, you've guessed it, they too have failed to take effective action. And the 2,000 million pigs? These laws have been enforced since 2003. 250 million pigs are reared each year in the EU. We cautiously estimate that 80% are not given enrichment materials and 90% are routinely tail docked. This means that over the 10 years since these laws came into force,
2,000 million pigs have suffered poorer welfare than they would have done if the laws had been respected. In addition, we found many sows still being kept in narrow stalls, even though this system has been banned by the EU for all but the first 4 weeks of the sow's pregnancy. And a week before giving birth, most sows are put into farrowing crates, where usually they are kept until the piglets are weaned at 3 to 4 weeks of age.
Can we have great Joanna? You see, I don't know what's the most shocking thing about this. That ghastly film, showing the indifference of farmers across our proud member nations, or the absolute indifference of the European Union in enforcing its own laws. I don't know which I find more scandalous. Everything we've seen on this film is indefensible. The only reason farmers get away with this is that they are encouraged to believe that meat must be cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. And the competitive element in them makes them treat their animals so appallingly. We as consumers don't bother to read the labels. We don't want to see the labels. We like to pick up something, bring it home, cook it up, as our endless programs on cookery and endless magazine articles show us how to continue tucking in, with no thought at all for the sentient creatures. Now, I can't believe, Joyce, when was it we went to Parliament with our little pig baby?
1995.
We took a little baby pig to Parliament all those years ago to prove that animals, pigs in this case, particular case, are sentient creatures capable of feeling pain, despair, joy, affection. All creatures are capable of these things. And Parliament in Britain was made to understand that yes, the creatures are sentient. They are more sentient than a sack of potatoes or a box of apples. And they were classed as sentient creatures who have their own rights. And this was adopted by the European Union. What's happened? Can you tell me, marvellous representatives here of this proud, extraordinary group of nations, 28 of us together, what's gone wrong with democracy? That when we make laws, they can be flouted 100% year after year with no retribution, going through this hardship and horror, and because they don't have expressions on their faces, and because they are babies and they prick up their baby ears when the camera comes, and they look a little bit cute when they're tiny, and not cute when they're big, and because all our terms of disagreeable, he's a road hog, she's a fat pig, this room looks like a pigsty. We've always used, even propping it up with religions, dirty animals, horrible animals. So suddenly the pigs are in the firing line, and what are we doing about it? Well, we've got the evidence, and the great thing is, we've got the laws. So now all we have to do is enforce the laws. How do we do this? Well, little by little, because 28 member nations is colossal, Europe is immense, there are hundreds of thousands of farmers and millions of pigs. How do you do it? Well, you start where the law is. You start with the vets. You start with the members of Parliament and the MEPs. You start with the general public. You let it be known. And I think you should have a kind of licensing system, which is run by independent veterinary advice, because I'm sorry to say this, and I'm probably speaking out of turn, I have a feeling that sometimes the vets are more on the side of the farmers than they are on the side of the animals. So we want questions from the floor. How do we enforce the laws that are already there? Can we have questions from anybody, to any of us?
And all I can simply say is that one thing we could do as a result of today's initiative and the bill, which I caught the tail end of and was quite horrific, is perhaps, through the Animal Welfare Intergroup of the Parliament, to have a series of questions to the Commission, challenging them to actually enforce the legislation and to name and shame those countries in particular which we believe are the most egregious offenders.
And I think it's important that we really do point the finger at some of the big member states here, because the countries that have got infringement actions aren't just the new member states, they're not just the smaller or financially troubled member states, but it's France, it's Germany. These are big, wealthy countries whose farming industries get a huge amount of money from the EU budget through the CAP, not necessarily to the livestock industry, but to the farming industry as a whole. We need to be prepared to say that non-compliance should be fined and that there is zero tolerance.
That's why we make laws. And that's why laws must be enforced. Otherwise, there's no point in parliaments. There's no point in democracy if we cannot enforce the laws. So we're here, I've got no voice, I'm an actress, that's what I am. All my job is to try to attract a few more people here than would have been here already. But the legislature is here. Why do we need even more? We're not an enemy, we're all in the whole thing together. How is it that we can't enforce our own laws? If I drive at 40 miles an hour in a 30-mile zone, or if I refuse to pay £250 worth of tax, I'll be in jail because it's against the law. Oh, Brussels, what's gone wrong? Any questions?
Unfortunately, I totally agree with you. When the EU claims that it has the highest standards, in this case in animal welfare, a piece of paper that says that means absolutely nothing until we can see that in action, fully implemented, in all member states across the board. And for anybody to take any of these standards or any of these rules seriously, there needs to be heavy and strict penalties for people who do not comply. And any member state who cannot verify that needs to justify its own actions. That is what we would expect from an EU that was working correctly and a Commission doing its job. Unfortunately, all the time we see across the board implementation not taking place. There is no level playing field. Nobody's playing the same game. Everybody's playing by different rules, and it's not good enough. If consumers knew that this was happening, I do think that they would be outraged about it if there was some way of differentiating the two different products.
I just wanted to... There's something I read a few years ago that particularly motivates me to be concerned about pigs and the breaches of the law. It was written by a man called Lyle Watson in a book called The Whole Hog. And he said, I know of no animals that are more consistently curious, more willing to explore new experiences, more ready to meet the world with open-mouthed enthusiasm. Pigs are incurable optimists and get a big kick out of just being. I mean, to me that's wonderful. If you met any person with all those qualities, you think they're marvellous. that we keep these animals with those qualities in such cruel and illegal conditions is just awful. If there are no more questions or comments, Dan, thank you very much for hosting the event. Joanna, thanks so much. I know how busy you are. Thanks for coming to Brussels. I think you've got a bit more time for some members of the Parliament like a photo. Sure.
Yes, please.
I'm afraid I don't do photos.
Thank you all so much for coming, Peter. I have to say that. Thank you all so much for coming, Peter. I have to say that you said if you knew anybody that came close to having those traits themselves, I think you come pretty close. So thank you so much also for all your big work. Thank you all.